Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Packet Live. We are here with Caleb James Delisle, Jesse Berger, and I am Jeremy Berger. What's going on, guys? How are we today? It's Wednesday.
Doing pretty dang good.
Yep.
It is
Wednesday. April 22, depending on where you are on the planet.
Most places in Asia.
Unless you're, even if you're in, it may have just gone midnight in Asia. Yeah. So if you're in Asia, April 23rd. So what's going on, guys? What's happened in the world today that we need to tell everybody about?
Well, Bitcoin absolutely double bottomed and is ripping to the top end of its level. We'll have to see how it does around this 80,000 mark, but yeah, it's a good look. Definitely a good look. Are there any underlying fundamentals that make any sense for it to be ripping towards 80,000? I don't think so, but so it goes. Just
does anything at all make any sense when the president of the United States tweets and everybody's just like made up? Nothing makes sense. You just have to roll with it.
Yeah, you just gotta roll with it. You just gotta deal with what you got in front of you. And what you got in front of you is almost an $80,000 Bitcoin. So if you didn't like Bitcoin at 65,000 or 60,000, you probably definitely don't like it at 80,000. But if you're trading, it's a good day, some good volatility. And there is a massive CME gap at, I think it's at like 66. So definitely
beware.
Caution. Yeah.
I saw this funny, sorry, I'm just spreading the word on all the channels, but I saw this funny, like, I guess account, and it was a video of this guy, and what he does is he reads the president of the United States tweets.
Okay.
And it's just rambling, incoherent nonsense. Like, oh my God, this new one about Tim Cook and how he like calls him Tim Apple. And he literally, oh my God, dude, it's literally just hilarious. He's just a laughing stock at this point. I mean, even like hardcore MAGA, like Trump supporters, like you gotta laugh at this guy now. I mean, he's just such a joke, and everyone in his administration's a joke, but it's like you and it's funny. I see all these like hardcore MAGA people, and they're like burning MAGA hats and like, I should have listened to everybody when they told me this was a joke.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I actually, the one thing I will give MAGA is that Trump was definitely a very different individual back in 2016. His candidacy, his 2015, 2016 candidacy. And I've actually watched, it's crazy now if you look back at his old, debates and just the way he was interacting back then, he had a lot more vigor. Like he's aged a lot in the last 10 years, and
what do you mean he's 4.7% body fat, dude?
My favorite is that meme where they show like DK Metcalf, who's 6'4", 200 and something pounds,
215, 240 pounds,
absolutely ripped with like, just crazy
chiseled abs.
Yeah. And then they put Trump, and Trump's got the exact same metrics. Yeah, it's insane. But it's true, like, before Trump was taking special interest money and money from billionaires, and he was really this kind of like maverick independent player taking over the Republican Party. He had an edge, and he's abandoned all that. He doesn't give a crap anymore. He got what he wanted. He duped everyone, and he knows it, and he just can do whatever he wants. He knows he can do whatever he wants now. So the narcissism level.
If he doesn't end up in prison at the end of this, because he's playing with fire. I mean, if he had followed through with his promises, then he probably would have been a decent president. which it's a little while. The last all of our lives as presidents have been awful.
Yeah.
And he brought together a big tent. He got Kennedy, he got Elon, he got all these kind of different people and brought them all together. Got the libertarians on board, and it was really kind of a beautiful thing. But then he just went and stabbed everybody in the back, and
yeah. No, he did not care. I mean, this guy. I mean, his reputation obviously precedes himself. Everyone was like, just didn't listen to anyone and just believed what they wanted to hear. And obviously what he was telling everyone. You got a guy. I think there's a statistic. He's been in the most lawsuits of any American in the history of the world. And he may be in the most lawsuits of an individual ever of all time. Like that's the level of like virtual civil criminality that this guy operates under. And I mean, besides all the high profile bankruptcies, the lies, the fraud, I mean, everything. And then, he's in the White House again, but people really wanted to believe, and a lot of people still do, in the message versus, what their eyes are telling them. Like they just kind of believe the story versus like what the reality is. So
well, I think a lot of people are just like, both these candidates are garbage. This one
I agree with that.
Promises that maybe will turn out to something. Here, have a vote.
I
didn't even go to the embassy and vote. I didn't bother. It was like that.
Well, I think that Americans want daddy, and I think that they want somebody who's going to be authoritative, who's going to be strong, who's going to quote unquote look up for their best interests, and that is clearly what Americans want. And Trump just gave that to them in spades, and he was persistent. He was available. He continues. I mean, there's some pros with the guy besides the fact that his policy is awful. He is accessible, and I think one of his gifts is the ability to freestyle in the face of aversion and just attack. And he can just stand, and he'll stand right in front of the press all the time, every day, basically, and he'll spar with them. I mean, he lies right to their face, but he'll spar with them, and he can spin the narrative, and he knows the importance of that, and that's part of the way he got into, office. I also think, I mean, obviously the coalition is collapsing. You're seeing MAGA talking about how the assassination was staged. Like you're seeing like a lot of, you're seeing a lot of dissent that's starting to occur within the coalition. But what hasn't broken yet is the Senate or the House is still lockstep with this guy. All the judges that he puts in front of Congress for appointment are all NPCs. He just put that Kevin Warsh in front of the committee, and that guy's a straight up NPC. I mean, that guy his brain is just literally just programmed to just spew whatever he's been told to say. So it's like those people are still lockstep with the administration, and you can have dissension from the public, but at the end of the day, what really gets the job done is what's happening, in politics. So
I think it was always going to be dissent or MAGA was always going to fall apart once Trump defected, because it was such a big tent. Like it had to bring so many different groups of people together. And so it was always tenuous. There's the health people who were kind of like hippie type of people, under Kennedy, and they got brought in. The libertarians kind of got brought in, and that was always going to fall apart the second that he went rogue. I think that he has kind of created a situation where him and Israel are connected now, and their fates are intertwined, and so he will have the favor of AIPAC, because they need him to continue the war in Iran. So he now has kind of another group that will back him. And we'll see how that works for him. I mean, it's very, very dangerous. You'll either become remembered as like the American Stalin, or he's just going to prison.
Yeah, I mean, the conspiracy theories and it's just absolutely insane what the narrative is around this administration in America. Like, obviously, this conversation for all the people watching international, like, if you don't watch the news and you're just living your normal life, you probably don't really have much awareness for the level of corruption, like unprecedented amount of corruption that's happening in America, in American politics. But if you're not paying attention to the news at all, let's say you have no social media, no TV, and you're just living your life, you go to work, you do your job, blah, blah, blah. You are feeling the effects of this economy, which is not good. Like in America, everything is gone up 10 to 20 to 50%. Gas is up basically 50%. I mean, I know it says 11% nationally. In California, it's up 50%. And in a lot of other places, food is up massively. Like food, like you go in, one bag of groceries at Trader Joe's is 50 to 60 bucks now. That used to be maybe 30 bucks. So, I mean, food's up 50%. And that's just,
you have kids. It's insane because you have to buy like these, you buy like yogurts and like, apple sauces and milk and like eggs and things that you cook for like breakfast and snacks. Like, I mean, if you have kids, that you're just snacking all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. And it's like the cost of living. I saw it. Or go for it, Caleb.
People I know who are not from the US, never been to the US, I have a really hard time communicating to them how dire, for lack of a better word, life is in the US. Like, people think that everything is so much nicer than it is anywhere else, and it's not really like that. It's like costs are through the roof. Medical, you can. The rest of the world doesn't know the concept that one day something could happen, whether it be a medical bill or a lawsuit, or something can happen that like just ends your life financially. You lose your house, that kind of thing. Like, that doesn't exist in the rest of the world. And I have a hard time communicating to people that that's a reality that a lot of people live under.
I think the other thing that I would say, like, even if you hate Trump, the one thing that he ran on that I think everybody in America resonated with was, well, two things that I think were really key. One, he said, I'm going to lower your energy bills instantaneously. He even said your electricity bill is going to go down substantially. That's gone up. But the big thing that I think everyone rallied behind, and again, there's a bunch of things that people rally behind, crypto being one of them. That's absolutely been obliterated. He sent that right into a bear market. But the big one was around the debt and this fraud, waste, and abuse. He really did a great job with that narrative. And the whole idea of Doge, which was basically a complete fraud. That was basically for Elon Musk to get in there and just go steal all of America's data from the Social Security Department and just to feed all that data into major AI models. Like, that was literally the whole ploy of Doge. Like, Doge was a complete farce. There was there was nothing there. And it was another ploy to dismantle a bunch of agencies, that they wanted to dismantle, whether it be from the Department of Education, obliterated, USAID. They basically framed that as a big, fraud ring, opposed to, being part of America's influence in the world and helping, around health. And I mean, at this point, we can't believe a single thing that they framed as being references of fraud, because there was so much error. And obviously Elon claimed that he was going to, have this website, it was going to be completely transparent. And then he put the website up and it just turned out to be, rife with errors and duplicates and triplicates. And it was just like at that, and then he just turned it off and then he just quit, like the guy didn't even get close. I mean, he talked about saving $2 trillion. I don't think he even got to like a fraction of that, not even 10% of that. So it was, and we know what we got out of it. It was nothing good. But rather than save any money, and the whole idea of like, hey, we're going to focus on American roads and infrastructure and, make America great again. You basically wreak havoc, fire everybody. I mean, there's been more layoffs in America in the last, 12 months than during, I think it's like rivaling, the 2008 crash. And then we have the deficit, excuse me, now heading up over 39 trillion. And now we're in a war in Iran spending $2 billion a day. Well, these guys gave tax breaks to the rich and said that they can't cover any of the, help for Americans around health care, anything. Like literally, it's just absolutely nothing. You even have Trump saying we can't even do domestic policy. All we can do is fight wars. And that's really all he's wanting to focus on. Obviously, change the, Department of War, and he's literally just been waging wars all over America, and I mean all over the world. And the craziest thing, I just saw this news announcement. It's just absolutely laughable about the agenda that's going through the House right now, and the stuff is basically like the Arc de Trump, the putting his face on Mount Rushmore, issuing a $250 bill with Trump on it, having Trump's signature on U.S. currency. Like these are the things that are getting priority, for, putting his name on the Dulles Airport in Texas.
I wonder if he just lost it. I wonder if like his mind is actually just gone, and that's why he's gotten into this weird like cult of personality stuff.
Well, he always had that.
He doesn't really have a plan anymore. Because we just kind of assume that, okay, he's slithery, he's slippery, he's, everything he says is probably a lie, but he probably has a plan, and he probably wants to at least have some kind of a reputation at the end of this. But if he's just lost his mind, then you could imagine that, like, everything's just crumbling down like the plot of the movie Brazil, and he's just like, we're gonna put my name on the currency.
Well, it's just a distraction, all these other things, because what's really happening is there's midterm elections in America happening this year, and we're seeing already a lot of states are flipping, and what that means is if the states flip and the majority goes to Democrats opposed to Republicans, well, that means that they can control the Senate and the House, which would be very bad for Trump and all his people in Congress, because it's going to force them to basically testify and do all this stuff. So I think in the next few months, things are going to get interesting as long as, they continue to flip.
And I'm sure Democrats are going to try to fumble this, but like, my opinion is they could run a Satan worshiping child molester and still win, because the war in Iran and all the just going off the rails and ignoring his base, ignoring his promises, and just going off and doing his own thing like that. Yeah, that's kind of the worst thing he could have done.
Yeah, no, it's well, I mean, there's no question that he wants to retain power, and he understands the impact of Republicans losing the midterms. And so that's why he's, rallying this, again, another farce about illegal immigrants voting, which is it's the funniest thing too, because like the logical element of it, if you're an illegal immigrant, are you signing up to vote and giving your name and address? And like, obviously you need to have some sort of identification to even sign up, but are you like willfully giving your contact information to the government to identify yourself if you're just to vote? Like, it just doesn't even make any sense if you're here illegally. We already know that the number of illegal immigrants voting truthfully is basically almost non-existent. It's fractions of a percent. So it's a non-issue, but it is just about disenfranchisement. And that's why he's trying to nationalize, the voting, federalize the voting. And he just signed an executive order actually this last week that, creates a national registry where the White House gets to determine who gets to vote and who has to get taken off the voter rolls. And if states don't comply, then he's going to withhold their state funding, which is obviously all unconstitutional and illegal. And he just, signed that and hope that he can get some traction on it while it runs its course, hopefully up to the Supreme Court before the midterms, So
the SAVE Act failed. So
yeah, SAVE Act failed, and that's why he just signed the this executive order, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
I don't think it's going to move the needle. I think supposedly illegals are good for about 5 points. That's the word on the street. It's about 5%. But that's still kind of in the margin of error here, where he can still manage to lose even with voter ID in 50 states.
The idea to 5%, you'd be implying that out of 150 million voters, 7.5 million illegal people are voting. That's impossible. It's just impossible. That's just too many. It's just not realistic that you would be able to get that many votes. It's hard to even get Americans to vote. You're going to get 7.5 million of legal aliens to go out to polls and vote. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. Yeah, no, it's fractions of 5%.
It's probably also double counting and the other stuff. I mean, look, I'm an Irish guy from Massachusetts, so I'll tell you all about vote early, vote often. This stuff. This is pretty old. It's been around for a long time.
I will say, and this is the one thing that I think gives me an interesting tip about voting, is that so you got Trump rallying and saying, "Hey, the Democrats stole the 2020 election through some sort of like fraud or ballot stuffing, this and that," and so that apparently that election was fake, okay, or fraudulent or whatever. But somehow the 2016 election where Trump won, no issues there. And somehow if the Democrats had the ability to fraudulently determine the outcome of elections, they just decided to let Trump become the president in 2024. No issues with the 2024 election in any seat that or election that favored Republicans. But so it's just like, I don't quite understand how you can say that the election system is completely fraudulent, but that Trump won in a landslide. And he's like celebrating that. So it's like, it makes me think that the only thing you could give some credence to is, what if he does know that it is possible to cheat in voting? And so he wasn't able to pull off the cheat in 2020, lost, and so has to sow the doubt. And then he figured out how to cheat in 2024, implemented whatever policies, because we do know that he had some Republican operative by, the digital voting system, and we know that there was like some weird update that was run without any audit right prior to the election. So it's like, it makes you think maybe he just cheated himself into the election or being elected in 2024.
Stuff is a disaster.
It's all a distraction. Yeah, it's all a distraction. I mean, dude, none of this shit even matters. It's like, it's all like, focus over here on this stupid shit, putting his face on a $100 bill or name on a friggin' building or changing the Department of Defense to department. Like, all this stuff is just distraction from all the other fucking psycho shit that's going on in the world,
I don't know if anybody's really distracted except boomers.
I'm just saying that's their play. I mean, they've been doing it for years.
I mean, I only heard it from you that it existed.
I mean, I even think that, like, do you remember in 2020 during COVID, right? There was all those protestings and stuff that were going on, all the like marches for like George Floyd and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, during that time, people were just completely distracted of anything going on with COVID. What's the best way to stop talking about something is make something more loud, talk louder. And so
then everyone got in the streets and was
everyone got in the streets, and whether it was good or bad for either side, it made us forget about COVID. It made us stop thinking about all of the, anger that we had because they shut down the entire world. And like, it just kind of changed everybody's whole like shift. The narrative went into the news. Now, this was the most important thing. It's the same shit with Epstein files, right? That was covering the whole news. Now the war in Iran, no one's even talking about Epstein files anymore. Like that shit is not even on the radar. I mean, some people are still on social media, but in mainstream news, that's completely shifted over here.
Right.
So, I mean, what we should be talking about is the floods across the world, and like all the hunger and like all the real problems that are happening on the planet, not, these friggin' issues that are being covered. There's so many, like Hawaii, for example. I mean, if you have been paying attention, Hawaii's been hit by like 3 or 4 catastrophic floods in the last 2 months. Like Hawaii is just getting obliterated. And then you got this typhoon that just went through Ghana, or not Ghana, Guam. It was a Guam, or there was a crazy typhoon that just, a category 5 typhoon that just went through Asia. And like,
there's a good conspiracy theory that's making the rounds that the Iranians are saying that as soon as they bombed the radar, the really big radar that the U.S. had in all the Gulf states, as soon as they bombed those radars, all of a sudden, a 5-year-long drought that's been hammering Iran vanished. Yeah. And the clouds came in. Iran's got so much water right now. All their reservoirs are full. Everything's green. They've got water coming out. So
we all know that they can manipulate the weather. I mean, there's no question about that. That's been a technology where they can do cloud seeding, and they can, bring storms in. What they do is that you can look at like flight tracks of these airplanes that fly in zigzags in a circle and do all these weird configurations when a storm is coming. Like, and so what it does is it puts all this moisture, and then it combines and it creates these supercells. And there's no question that shit. I mean, look, I'm here in California. It's friggin' pouring rain the last 3 days. Like, I can't remember April 22nd where it's had this much rain. I mean, I'm trying to even think back. I mean, sometimes it will get cold, like on the 21st, and we might have like a drizzle and like maybe a little cold front. But yesterday was like absolutely pouring all day, and the night before it was absolutely pouring all night. And today it's raining still. So we're basically snow in the Sierras, and a week ago it rained. So we just got 3 feet of snow up in Tahoe. Now it's raining again, probably another couple feet. It's just weird weather,
Yeah, no, it's weird weather. Look, there's so many weird things going on, and and to your point, it's like definitely distraction. So it's like, where do you as an individual fit into this world, and what's your impact, and what are you doing here, and what do you want to have your either your legacy or your day-to-day be. And it's interesting because we find all these things that we get interested in. A lot of it's like either financially driven or health or family driven, and you can have a quaint, like really satisfying life for sure. And then there's other people trying to make, huge impact on the world, and through technology, through politics, whatever. So, I think it's interesting, even on this chat here, just like sitting around the campfire, so to speak, talking about conspiracy theories, and, thinking about what is actually happening versus what, we see in the news and whatever. But we can also give a little update as well on things happening in our little corner of the world, in terms of next steps on our transaction. We ended up completing the contract, signed in escrow with the signatures, and now just waiting on the payment to clear. So as soon as that happens, we we'll turn this corner hopefully this week. But yeah, just literally at this point, everything's done, everything's teed up, and just waiting for the payment to the wire to clear. And as soon as that happens, we're off to the races. So maybe, hopefully, we can announce this thing at least privately over the this month. It just because we close it doesn't mean we'll go wide announcing it, but we did have a cool talk with a publicity a PR team that we've actually, our second meeting we had on Monday, and just kind of like teeing up strategy, how to make this announcement, and what those communications look like. So it seems they're great, very, very positive in terms of having a strong team that can help shape the narrative and do these communications and build awareness for our plans. And yeah, it'll be a public announcement. We've been saying that for months now, so that's definitely positive. The other thing, just as a follow-up, and I saw a little chatter in the Packet community. Now that AI is happening, and Claude Code, and Claude Design, I mean, it's just insane, all this AI. It's like I was saying, I think on our last chat, that I wish all this AI stuff was around a couple of years ago to the extent that it exists today. But it'd be very cool to just get some feedback from the community on things that could be potentially easily polished in regards to whether it be the dashboard, the website, the roadmap, just like anything, and get some feedback from the greater Packet team on things that we could put some attention to, and get some modifications. We are obviously talking about the VPN stuff, and that's, I think, it's certainly a bigger task, but something that could potentially be approached. And
this topic of AI encoding has started to become kind of a thing. A lot of people are starting to talk about it because there are contributions coming into open source projects that are vibe coded, and by people that don't know what they're doing. So they don't know what the AI is outputting. And it used to be that those type of people couldn't actually make a contribution that's even plausible. They just couldn't even send anything. And now they're able to make something that is plausible enough to waste somebody's time. And
is there any credence to it? Like, even if is it like, could you say, hey, it's a good idea, bad execution? Or is it just like bad idea, bad execution?
It's more like what you wished for is a good, but wishes that doesn't get you there. It's like you wish to have this thing. The AI just kind of wrote some stuff, which an experienced developer could potentially work with that as kind of a framework and build on it and volley back and forth and get there. But an inexperienced developer doesn't know what they're doing. They're writing, they're doing stuff that doesn't, it's not going to work. And it actually gets worse, because sometimes when you submit some code, you'll say, I discovered this problem on my production machine under these circumstances, it will do this. It's very rare. You're not going to see it because you don't have the same machine as me, but this is why this happens. And it causes this, causes this. And then this is a bug, and this is how you fix it. That's something that very, very experienced people will do. They'll write, a page in order to explain why a change is being made. Well, AI is kind of smart enough to make something really plausible that somebody reads it and they'll think it's real.
Yeah.
But it doesn't understand that hallucinating a week-long debugging exercise is lying. It's fraud. You're defrauding the person, because you're telling them, you're writing this, what amounts to a comment that's telling them, this is something that I did, and I discovered, and that's not true. But AI will make that, and that is, so that's really probably the worst thing that can happen is when somebody is just like, hey, Claude or Clawbot, just go write a pull request. and they're not involved in the intermediate of it, and it will write this language that it's pieced together from different things that real people have written in order to sound plausible.
Yeah.
And it's all fake, and that is something that it's like no real human would ever, who could write that type of text, would ever write it dishonestly. You know, nobody is that sociopathic to write that dishonestly. Oh yeah, just make a bunch of stuff and send it. But an AI doesn't really have that concept that it's lying.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting. You bring up a fascinating point, and because there are elements of our world where volume prevails. So, for example, and where efficiency, like AI, even if it's like not good, work can still be useful. So, like an art, like getting articles out. Like there's so much volume of things happening. So an AI could flag a bunch of different things and just write blurbs and send out 10 sentences, and it's like, oh, it's pretty good, like it doesn't matter, you know, it's just like it did get the news out, the news was accurate, and it was able to, by volume basis, make sure it published on 100 publications, which would be hard for an individual to do from a workload standpoint. But what's interesting, and it's a similar thing with law, you know, where we saw a lot of these issues early on in people using AI around lawsuits, and it was making up like fake references, fake legal references that didn't exist, right? So it's like referencing lawsuits that like never occurred and creating essentially fake ruling as reference to why, you know, this plea should be, you know, considered. And so that, it's very different obviously than writing code, but fundamentally it's similar in the sense that you're being dishonest, and then you're basing something that requires a factual foundation on something that's completely fake and non-existent, and or even non-existent. And then that pollutes. So what I was going to say is that ends up polluting either people doing real valid work. It pollutes their attention. It can pollute other filings. Like you're now creating a logjam of voluminous paperwork that human would need a review. That's just garbage and gibberish. You're reading it, you're like, what the heck is this? This is complete garbage. Or even worse, they don't realize that the references are fake, and it's now negatively influencing outcomes based on, you know, the fact that it was lies. So that is really a inherent and fundamental risk with what AI is doing, because I think what's also happening is it's allowing an uneducated populace to get access to the work levels that super educated people, you know, used to be solely domiciled into that environment. And you're allowing these people who don't belong there to come in and cause problems. It actually is very interesting, Jerry. Think of it like if you were a surfer and there was a period of time where like you would never go paddle out at Pipeline if you were a novice or a beginner. Like it's too dangerous, like you know. And with kind of, there was this period in the late 90s, you know, through the early 2000s where magazines started to popularize, you know, these beautiful waves, and they look majestic and perfect, and you're like, oh my god, I want to go surf Pipeline. And so all of a sudden, all these fucking kooks that are just coming out with their big foam top, just paddling out at the fucking most dangerous wave in the world, and now creating a traffic jam around the takeoff zone where experts ride these waves, and those beginners are actually creating like real fundamental danger. And now people are getting hurt because those people don't belong there. They can't even catch the wave because it's too expert, too advanced. But because they saw something like, oh, I can do it, I can be the guy. All I do is buy a plane ticket and a rental car, and I can just pull up because it now, you know, Google tells me where the address is, and I can just, you know, paddle out with my rental board, and now people are literally, you know, getting hurt. That same concept now where it's like Claude Code is like, you now have beginners walking into GitHub fucking doing pull requests that they have no belonging to, you know, or entitlement to do. They're too dumb to read the material to even know if it was good or bad or trash. And yeah, we're going to get a lot of that type of stuff. So we need to figure out a way to like, guardrail and filter this stuff, because it's a real problem. It can be,
Well, and
it's going to
also
get worse before it gets better.
Scientific papers. This is another place where it's going to be devastating, because yes, some people do try to reproduce experiments, but oh yeah, we interviewed 10,000 people and we got these results. Most people take that and they're just like, yeah, I think that's probably true. I don't think that they made it up, because usually there's a baseline understood, like maybe you play a little bit with the p-values, you cheat the paper a little bit, you make the
Right.
you doctor up the results, you make them look a little nicer. Everybody kind of does that on a low level, or not everybody, but it's common on a low level. But if you carefully read the paper, you can see that they made it a little rosier than it should be. But what nobody's really prepared for is a paper where they say, oh yeah, we went and interviewed 10,000 people and we got these results. There were no people. There was no interview. That's a lie.
Right.
Yeah. I also think, I was just back to your reference, but also like, there are, people are like kids and stuff are doing things that they should, the generation has so much access to this new, world of AI. Think about when we were, 15, 16 years old, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have access. We got our information from magazines and newspapers and, television news. That's it, So now everybody has the ability to learn. Like, how many, videos do you see about learning how to use these AI products? And so kids that are 15, 16 years old are able to, they're going to grow up with the AI as a job, as like a skill requisite to be successful in any areas. Like because what's going to happen is every sector, whether it's coding, whether it's surfing, whether it's, being a lawyer, you're going to have to know how to use AI. Whether you use it to do the whole job or not, you're going to need to use it, because all these other people will be using it, and they're going to be much faster, much more efficient, much, get a lot more done in a, shorter time span than, 65-year-old Mark, who's been a lawyer for 40 years, but he doesn't know how to use AI. So he's still, I just went to the courthouse and I had to file some papers. Okay. And there's a lady there, and I gave her my papers, and she had to do like 6 or 7 stamps on each piece of paper. Okay. And every piece of paper had a paper clip. So you got to think of the materials, the ink, the stamps, the paper clips, the paper. And like, there's going to be a way eventually where like AI will be able to, stamp it, you won't need paper clips, and that person's job may become obsolete. I mean, you don't need a freaking law degree to be a county clerk office official who literally just sits there all day until someone comes in, and then when they come in, all they're doing is stamping, filing, and boom, it's off to the races. So in the next 10 years, it's going to be wild, and all these kids, even like my kids and Caleb, your kids, they're so young, and they're being exposed to YouTube and Netflix and Disney and like all this stuff that like we didn't get. That we didn't have that when we were little. We had to put in a VHS tape to watch, Peter Pan. It wasn't even until we were in high school where there were like DVDs. Like I remember going to Blockbuster and video, USA Video or whatever, and buy and rent VHS tapes. And then it became, a DVD. Then it became Blu-ray. And then now don't even have either of those devices. You just watch it on a streaming television. Well, then it was cable.
Yeah.
Now you don't, and then DVR. Now you don't need any of that shit. All you need is a smart TV, and you can watch everything you want. YouTube, so it's going to be
the quality's gotten better. Like you got to remember back in the 90s,
sure.
TV was bad, and what YouTube will give you what you want from it, or what you accept. It'll give you what you accept. So if you accept garbage, it will give you garbage. But if you refuse to accept garbage and you insist on a higher level of quality, it will come up with that. And so things have improved a lot.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's definitely, I think at this point, implementing AI is, I think, important. I think with the low level stuff like social media, like AI thrives in that environment, and anything that revolves around pushing volume out there, it can thrive. I think vibe coding is great, going from 0 to 1. I think that stuff's fantastic. I love using AI to, kickstart stuff. I don't like AI's writing for the most part. I think it's not good. And so, but I like editing something more than writing something oftentimes. So it does help me kind of just, and especially if you do give it a lot of input, like you can get really close to quality. Like, I think that's the other thing is, wherever the AIs start is always going to be super generic. But as you work with it more, I'll give you an example. Like, I'm working on a contract, let's say, and I'll upload a couple reference contracts and say, hey, this is kind of something that we're working on. That reference contract will be something that was real from a real lawyer. And then say, okay, I need help changing this one paragraph. It'll rewrite the paragraph for me, and I might just have to tweak a couple things, but only maybe 5 to 10% of it. At that point, because of the quality of the reference, whatever it's adding is going to be relatively good for the most part. And so I've seen it be helpful in that regard. If I just say, hey, write me a contract from scratch, it's questionable. I do find that Claude is actually better than ChatGPT in a lot of writing stuff. I've found that Claude is, doing some good stuff there. So, but yeah, I think from a tool standpoint, it's interesting. I just did another one that's crazy where I've been doing a lot of sports betting, and really for the last 2 years, I've been studying, not just from a gambling standpoint, but really studying sports and the leagues, and immersing myself, especially around learning around, and now it's led into the predictive market stuff, but just learning as much as I can around sports leagues, kind of trying to figure out if I could crack the code on sports betting. And I just had this idea the other day. I was like, I should take all the info that I've been coming across and that I'm using to do analysis and just enter it into an AI project. And then just train this thing over the last 2 weeks and had it start, and I'll say give me the plays every single day, and then see what it does. Now, in the beginning, it was not working. It was it would give me bad stuff. Now it's the hit rate is legitimately competitive, and it keeps getting better. And I'll give feedback. I'll be like, hey, that was bad. This is why. But it's that kind of stuff iteratively. It's not just for something like gambling, but I think there's a lot of inputs that we have, that just kind of, we take the input, it happens in the day, and then we move on with our life. If you enter in data consistently into an AI, it can actually really function as a second brain. I actually saw a guy, he had been taking notes throughout his career. He said it was 10 years. He was very good about notes. All of his meetings, he kept very consistent notes, and he had this idea, and he created a set of prompts, and he entered in all his notes into AI and had it make a archive of everything that he took notes on over the years. And he said it's a second brain. He said it literally now knows him so well, his structure, the things that he tagged, everything like that. And he was talking about how he's been able to use it to help him, organize his tasks. It's giving him an assistant that's a mirror of himself, because he put in so much data. I don't know what the impact of that is, where you're basically turning over that much information to an AI.
Well, you also have to think that everything you give to AI, it has you're consenting that it can use to learn.
Yeah.
So it's I was just thinking about, I had done a task where I basically created a resume, and then I took my resume and I put it into Claude, and I said, hey, turn this into a professional looking structure and everything. And boom, it just spit me out what I written, made it better. And it gave me a resume that I didn't have to go into Word and how I normally would create a resume is go into Word, find a template that I liked, and then I would fill it all in. And then and then I would spell check.
Right.
Now I can write all this stuff out how I want it, and then I can throw it into Claude and say, hey, you're a professional, copywriter. You specialize in resumes and making sure that, the copy is right. Make sure you use my voice and my tone and my words, but like embellish it to make it a little bit better. And dude, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I use that. Or like the other day, I'm like, I wanted to start a new music project. And so I went into Claude and I gave it a bunch of like prompts. I said, hey, you're a social media expert and you specialize in music, starting new projects in the music space. And I gave it I said, do you understand? Yes. And then I just kept on saying what it was and training it to know what it was. And then I said, this is my vibe. This is the type of music. This is what I want to do. Blah, 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 blah. And it gave me, and I told it kind of like my thought of like how I wanted it to like pop off, like what my strategy was. And it like embellished my plan, gave me a posting schedule of like what they would suggest to do to make your project like get traction within social media. And like it was crazy. Like it's like what you would pay a company to help you do it. Like we paid for companies to help us, launch brands all the time. And it's like, it built me like everything. It built like color templates, like how to structure your posts, gave me the scripts that I could follow and with the hooks and all this stuff. And I'm just like, everybody has this ability now at their fingertips in any area. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be self-employed, or even if you have a job, but you want to like also do a couple side hustles, like you can put it into Claude or ChatGPT or any of these AI platforms and have it help you. I mean, you don't have to follow it exactly, but it helps give you like ideas. I just think about like, it gives so many shortcuts that
that
like if you're not using it, you're, and obviously don't believe everything you read on social media. A lot of these companies are paying people to create these videos, and it's not as easy as it looks. Like you can't just like go in and go scale to 6 figures a month off, Claude. Like it takes a lot of work, and also it takes upfront investment, like not just time, but you have to like you have to have a real job before you can like go on some of these side hustles. Until your side hustle makes more money than your job, then you can put your job and your side hustle becomes your only hustle.
For sure. But yeah, the tools are there. Absolutely. And, it pains me because of how much resources, were put into those traditional methods and how poor the output was. And like, we didn't have any of these tools just even like 3 or 4 years ago, So
I was just thinking about like I was just thinking back in the very, very, very beginning of PKT and Packet and Rowdy and all that stuff. Like if ChatGPT was creating, like had the ability of creating photos then, like, because I remember there was what was the visual thing? It was in a Discord. It was called you could create like images in Discord. Do you remember that? You give a prompt and it would like create Midjourney. It's like that's what you were dealing with was Midjourney, and you could it could create some incredible art.
Yeah, it was more random though what it was creating. Yeah.
Right. You give it a prompt, you could never replicate it. It was never like this is the style, this is what I want. But now you like with I think it's called it's not Sora 2, but there's these AI digital image processors that like, dude, it can create everything identical over and over and over again. Like some of these like AI influencers, like like I saw this one video of this guy who created an AI influencer, and what he did is he went on to Pinterest and he found a picture of this woman wearing this long, elegant dress, and he created her into an AI. And then he started a social media channel or page for TikTok and for Instagram, and used her face and her likeness and just put her in dresses of these retailers that were super nice dresses, super nice clothes. And he set up a TikTok shop and an Instagram shop selling those dresses as an affiliate. And, over time that thing takes off and just blows up. I was just like, and you can get away with that because how are anyone gonna ever know that, eventually somebody's gonna have to get, this is something's gonna have to give where these people aren't gonna be able to use real people's likenesses to sell products. And
yeah, that's definitely an issue. I mean, it's just as easy to make a new person though. And it's going to keep getting better. If you're using Higgsfield was, I think it's called like seed dance or something like that. It's getting like photorealistic, so good. It's like so good how quality you can like zoom in and you can see the
like Sora 2.0 is what it is.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, great. We're at an inflection point. This is like the beginning, of what's about to happen because all this stuff just dropped. Really, Claude, I think, is making it much more ubiquitous. ChatGPT really started for sure, but it's just going to keep getting better with what Anthropic's doing, and the quality of this and scalability is absolutely insane. I was just saying that they're saying that Anthropic's on course to do 100 billion in revenue this year, something like that. Looking at a $1 trillion valuation, it's like for a company that's just a few years old, it's absolutely insane. So, and the other thing I just wanted to add, and then we should log off, but is now, they're talking about you basically when you're using AI, you're going to need tokens, and this is an interesting little moment because, like, obviously the idea of tokens, well, going back to arcades, everyone knew tokens for arcades for sure. But then the idea and use of tokens really kind of was a crypto thing. It's been a crypto thing for the last, let's say, 8-9 years, right? And everyone's like, oh, what's the value of a token? They're worthless, that. Now that we're getting into AI and a token is actually being used to make an AI do something to create a specific output, you're actually getting a result that you want. And then we know that token activation is then requiring GPU cycles. There's energy that goes into that GPU, water that goes into cooling those GPUs. So there's like a real resource behind the token. So what is a token worth? And I just watched a video today where a guy was like, what's a token worth? What's an AI token worth? And that's a really interesting question. And it will be interesting to see what happens. And then you see Anthropic making, on course to do 100 billion a year. And that's because they're literally decimating in the, entire, I was going to say like departments, but it's like entire categories of jobs are being just like, homogenized into AI, AI.
Well, social media jobs for sure. I mean, if you're still paying people to run social media accounts, like, you're just using AI. I mean, there's basically
so many jobs. I mean, you can have like your CMO, your operations manager, like there's all these different jobs that can just be operated as like a clawbot now. I'm just saying it's going to slowly start to erode a lot of this stuff. And it's all going to Anthropic, and ChatGPT are going to be,
I think a lot of people are leaving ChatGPT.
Yeah, and rightfully so. ChatGPT is definitely an inferior product at this point to something.
Also, ChatGPT put a limit on their tier 1. So, like, I remember when you first got ChatGPT, free was basically pretty decent. You had a bunch of, there were limits, but you could still use it a lot now. And then you paid $12 or $15,
$20, I think.
$20 for like the tier 1, and there's limits on tier 1. So it's like, why would I use ChatGPT and pay to have limits when I can use Claude and have none?
No, Claude is making limits now too.
Now they're going to, but I'm just saying. I mean,
they have $100 max. They have a pro account, like $200.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, to use all of Claude, like to like, what am I saying? So like the limits for Claude and limits for ChatGPT are not the same. Like for the first tier. So it's like I run through my limits on ChatGPT. So I was like, I'm just canceling this, and I'd rather pay extra for Claude than pay for 2. that are limited.
Weird. I do not. I've never met my limit on ChatGPT. I use it all the time.
I do like a lot of like photos. So maybe, so what I do is I like have it take photos and edit them. So maybe that uses more of my
maybe
credits or tokens. We got to get PKT tokens for some of this stuff.
I know. We need an AI for.
All right, guys. Well,
all right. Well, look,
right on the hour mark. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. You know, as soon as we have more updates on what's happening in the PKT world, we will, or the packet world, excuse me, we will be, you know, sharing that with you guys. We'll be here next week, same time, same place as always. And may you all have a blessed day.
Peace.
Laters.